The forbidden neighbor. I saved her life, then destroyed her marriage. A Ryan's Revelations True Story. Part 1. The Midnight Rescue. My name is Ryan. I'm 25 years old, and this is the story of how one rainy night in Seattle changed my life forever and destroyed someone else's marriage. I moved into a quiet apartment complex just outside Seattle about 2 months before all of this happened. I was looking for peace, a fresh start after years of loud roommates and downtown chaos. I work at a logistics warehouse, hauling boxes and checking inventory. Hard work, but honest. It pays the rent on my one-bedroom place. My life was simple. Black coffee in the morning. Netflix at night. Weekend runs in the park nearby. No girlfriend, no drama. Just quiet. Finally, some peace. The apartment next to mine was silent most of the time. I'd see my neighbor, occasionally a woman who always looked put together. Professional, like she was heading to some important meeting even on weekends. We'd nod in the elevator. Maybe exchange a quick hey in the hallway. That was it. I didn't even know her name. Her place was like a tomb. No music, no TV, no footsteps. It was like she wasn't there half the time, which suited me fine. I liked the quiet. But that night, that cold November night, everything changed. It was close to midnight. I was sprawled on my couch, half watching some crime show with the volume low. Seattle was doing what Seattle does best, raining. Hard. The kind of downpour that makes the world feel small, contained, like nothing exists beyond your four walls. I was about to call it a night when I heard it. A loud thump from the wall I shared with her apartment. It was sharp, violent, like something heavy hitting the floor. I paused the TV, thinking maybe it was just a chair tipping over. The building was old. Could be mice. Could be anything. Then it came again, louder, more deliberate. Like someone slamming their fist against the wall. My heart kicked up a gear. I sat up, every nerve suddenly on alert. Silence for a moment. Just the rain tapping against the windows. Then thud, a muffled impact. Like a body hitting the floor. My stomach dropped. That wasn't furniture. That was human. I grabbed my phone and stood, my socks silent on the hardwood as I moved to the shared wall. I pressed my ear against it, holding my breath, straining to hear anything, nothing, just the relentless rain outside. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was probably nothing. But my gut wouldn't let it go. That sound had been too heavy. Too final, too wrong. I slipped on my shoes, stepped into the hallway, and knocked on her door. Hello? My voice came out louder than I meant. No answer. I knocked again, harder. You okay in there? Still nothing. I glanced down and saw a faint flicker of light under the door, like a lamp was tipping on and off, creating this stuttering glow. My pulse was racing now, adrenaline flooding my system. I tried the handle. Locked, of course. I banged on the door one more time, loud enough to wake half the floor. My fist hurt from the impact. Silence. I don't know what made me do what I did next. Maybe it was the flickering light. Maybe it was the memory of that thud, heavy and wrong and final. I thought about calling 911, but what would I say? I heard a noise? They'd tell me to mind my business. Instead, I stepped back, took a deep breath, and rammed my shoulder into the door. The lock was old, the wood cheap. It gave way after 2 hits, splintering at the frame with a crack that echoed down the empty hallway. The door swung open, and I stumbled into her apartment, my breath caught in my throat. The room was dim, lit only by a floor lamp that had tipped over, its bulb flickering like a dying star. Papers were scattered across the coffee table. A mug of tea sat on the counter, long cold, and there she was. Sprawled on the living room floor, one arm curled under her body, the other reaching out like she'd tried to catch herself. Her face was pale, almost gray in the dim light. Her lips were parted as she struggled to breathe in shallow, desperate gasps. Her shirt was crumpled and damp with sweat. Her hand trembled as it clutched at nothing, fingers curling and uncurling weakly. I dropped to my knees beside her, my hands shaking. Hey, can you hear me? My voice cracked. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy, unfocused, but trying desperately to find me. They were filled with something raw, fear, pain, desperation. I didn't know her name, but I recognized her now. The woman from the elevator. Always so put together, so controlled, so perfect. Now she looked small, fragile, like she might disappear if I looked away. I'm here, I said, trying to sound calm even though my heart was hammering. I checked her pulse, weak, erratic, barely there. I'm here, okay? Stay with me. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 with clumsy, shaking fingers. "I need an ambulance," I told the operator, my words tumbling out. "My neighbor's down. She's breathing, but barely. Something's really wrong." "Hurry, please hurry." The operator asked me questions, address, symptoms. Was she conscious? I answered on autopilot, my eyes never leaving her face. She stirred then. Her fingers brushed my arm, weak but deliberate. Her voice was barely a whisper, cracked and faint, like it was taking everything she had just to speak. "Don't leave me." Those 3 words hit me like a punch to the chest. They were heavy with something deeper than just the moment, loaded with fear and loneliness and something I couldn't quite name. I squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, and I meant it. "Help's coming. Just stay with me." Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, despite everything, despite the pain and the fear, I saw something else there. Recognition. Connection. Like she was seeing me, really seeing me for the first time. And I saw her too. The paramedics arrived 10 minutes later, though it felt like hours. Their boots were loud on the hardwood as they took over, checking her vitals, asking rapid-fire questions, loading her onto a stretcher with practiced efficiency. One of them asked if I was family. "No," I said, my voice hollow. "Just her neighbor." But as they wheeled her out, her eyes found mine one more time, just for a second. And in that glance, I felt like I was more than that, even if I didn't understand why. I followed the ambulance to the hospital, my jacket still damp from the rain that had started falling even harder. My mind was racing, replaying her words over and over. "Don't leave me." I didn't know her story. I didn't know her name. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't walking away, not yet. Part 2. The hospital confession. I barely slept that night. The hospital waiting room was cold, the kind of sterile chill that seeps into your bones and won't let go. I sat there for hours, my jacket still damp from the rain, replaying the scene in my head. Her pale face, the way her hand had clung to mine with desperate strength, her whispered plea not to be left alone. I didn't know why I stayed. She was a stranger, just the woman next door. But those words, that look in her eyes, had rooted me to that uncomfortable plastic chair. Around 3 a.m, a nurse finally came out. She was tired, professional, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. "She's stable," the nurse told me, "but she needs rest. You can visit tomorrow." She paused, consulting her clipboard. "She's been asking about the guy who brought her in. The one who broke down her door." I drove back to my apartment in the dark, the rain still falling, but softer now. The broken door to her place was propped shut with a chair I'd found in her hallway. I made a mental note to fix it later. My own apartment felt too quiet. The TV was still paused on that crime show I'd been watching when it all started. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, but sleep wouldn't come. All I could think about was her voice, fragile but fierce. I hate that feeling. What feeling? Being alone? Being helpless? I didn't know, but something about it haunted me. The next morning, I stopped by a corner store and grabbed a small bag of fruit apples, a couple of oranges, nothing fancy. It felt like the least I could do. The hospital was a short drive away, all gray concrete and glass under Seattle's perpetually overcast sky. I found her room on the 3rd floor. The door was half open. She was sitting up in bed, and 4-line taped to her arm. Her dark hair was pulled back loosely, revealing a face that looked better than last night, less pale, more present, but still tired. Shadows lingered under her eyes like she hadn't slept much either. She was wearing a hospital gown, but even in that, she had a kind of quiet dignity, like she was trying to hold herself together with sheer willpower. "Hey," I said, hovering in the doorway with the bag of fruit awkward in my hand. "Didn't know if you liked apples, but I figured ... Better than hospital food, right?" Her eyes flicked up, and for a second, I thought I saw surprise, maybe even embarrassment. Then she smiled, a small, cautious curve of her lips. "You didn't have to do that," she said. Her voice was stronger now, but still soft. "But thank you, Ryan, right?" "Yeah," I said, stepping inside. "And you're Victoria," she said. "Victoria Chun." Victoria. The name fit her somehow, elegant, strong, a little distant. I set the fruit on the table beside her bed, feeling suddenly out of place. "How are you holding up?" She shrugged, her fingers smoothing the edge of her blanket in a nervous gesture. "Better than last night." "They say it was low blood pressure and dehydration. I had a fever for a few days and just ... Didn't take care of it." She paused, her eyes dropping to her hands. "I'm not used to needing help," I nodded, leaning against the wall. Yeah, you don't strike me as the type to ask for it. I meant it as a light jab, something to ease the tension, and it worked. She gave a quiet laugh, her shoulders relaxing just a little. You're probably right about that, she admitted. Then her expression shifted, becoming more serious. I haven't thanked you properly. For breaking down my door, for staying with me, for ... quotes she trailed off, looking away. For not leaving me alone. There was weight in those words. More than just gratitude for a rescue. Something deeper. You don't need to thank me, I said. Anyone would have done the same. She shook her head slowly, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have called 911 and gone back to bed. You stayed. We sat in silence for a moment, something unspoken passing between us. And she looked down at her hands again, and I noticed it for the first time. A wedding ring, simple, elegant gold band on her left hand. My stomach dropped. Of course she was married. Of course. A woman like her, successful, beautiful, put together, why wouldn't she be? She must have seen me notice because she touched the ring self-consciously, twisting it around her finger. My husband travels a lot for work, she said quietly. He's in Singapore right now, has been for 2 weeks. Won't be back for another 3. The way she said it flat, almost mechanical, told me everything I needed to know about their relationship. Or maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe I wanted to read too much into it. Does he know? I asked. About last night? She shook her head. I texted him this morning. Told him I had a minor health scare, but I'm fine. He said ... double quotes. She paused, something flickering across her face. He said he'd try to call when his meetings are done. Try to call. Not I'm coming home. Not I'm worried. Just ... Try to call. That's rough, I said, not knowing what else to say. Victoria looked out the window, where rain was starting to streak the glass again. We've been married 7 years, she said, her voice distant. He's a consultant. Financial sector. Makes good money. We have a nice apartment, nice things. On paper, it's perfect. She didn't need to finish that sentence. I could hear what she wasn't saying. On paper. I moved to Seattle for his job 3 years ago, she continued, still looking out the window. Left my friends, my family in San Francisco. I'm an interior designer freelance now because I couldn't transfer my job. So I work from home. Alone, most of the time. The pieces were starting to fit together. The silence from her apartment. The walls she kept up. The loneliness in her eyes when she'd whispered, "Don't leave me." That sounds ... I searched for the right word. Isolating. It is, she admitted. But it's my choice, right? I married him. I moved here. I chose this life. There was something bitter in her voice. Something resigned. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck sometimes, I said. She turned back to me, and for the first time I saw her really smile. Not that cautious, polite smile. A real one. Small, but genuine. No, she agreed. It doesn't mean that. We talked for another hour. About nothing and everything. She told me about her design work, about growing up in San Francisco, about how she used to paint before she got too busy. I told her about the warehouse, about my own fresh start in Seattle, about my failed attempts at cooking anything more complex than ramen. It was easy, talking to her. Easier than it should have been for 2 strangers in a hospital room. When visiting hours ended, I stood to leave. Victoria reached out and caught my hand. Ryan, she said, her voice soft. Thank you, really. Not just for last night. For ... this. For treating me like a person instead of a project to fix. I squeezed her hand gently. You're not a project, Victoria. You're just my neighbor who needed help, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true anymore. She wasn't just my neighbor. I drove home that evening with her voice in my head, replaying our conversation. The way she'd smiled when she talked about painting. The way her eyes had lit up when I made her laugh. The way that wedding ring had caught the light. I told myself to be careful, to keep my distance. She was married. She was vulnerable. This was just being a good neighbor. That's all. But as I pulled into the parking lot of our apartment complex and saw her dark windows next door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was lying to myself. Something had started in that hospital room, something I didn't have a name for yet. Something dangerous. Part 3. The key. Victoria came home from the hospital 2 days later. I heard her door close in the early afternoon. I was home on my day off, and I found myself listening for sounds from her apartment more carefully than I should have. Around 6 that evening, there was a soft knock on my door. She was standing in the hallway, looking more like herself, dark jeans, a soft gray sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. But there were still shadows under her eyes, and she looked thinner than I remembered. "Hey," she said, holding up a paper bag. "I attempted to cook. It's probably terrible, but I figured I owed you more than fruit." I smiled and stepped aside. "You definitely didn't need to do that." "I know," she said, walking in. "But I wanted to." We ate her terrible cooking, which was actually pretty good vegetable stir-fry sitting on my mismatched couch, plates balanced on our knees. It felt strangely domestic, comfortable in a way that probably should have worried me. "So," she said between bites, "I called a locksmith. Getting my door fixed tomorrow. You completely destroyed it, by the way." "Yeah, sorry about that," I said, grinning. "Next time you're dying, I'll knock more politely." She laughed, a real laugh that made something warm settle in my chest. "Deal," she said. Then her expression shifted, becoming more serious. I've been thinking about that night. About being alone in that apartment, feeling like I was going to die, and knowing that no one would know. No one would care. "Victoria. My husband didn't even call," she said quietly. "I texted him from the hospital, told him what happened. He sent back, 'Glad you're okay.' And that was it. He's still in Singapore. Hasn't asked if I need anything, hasn't—" She trailed off, staring at her plate. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? "Your husband's an asshole," seemed accurate but unhelpful. "I spent 3 years here making myself smaller," Victoria continued, her voice gaining strength. Quieter, less needy. The perfect consultant's wife who doesn't complain about being alone, who doesn't ask for too much attention, who has her own life so he can have his. She set her plate down, her hands trembling slightly. "And you know what's fucked up?" she said, looking at me with eyes that were dangerously bright. I didn't realize how lonely I was until a stranger broke down my door and held my hand. The air between us felt charged suddenly, heavy with things unsaid. "You're not alone," I said, and immediately felt stupid. What a meaningless thing to say. But she smiled, sad and grateful at once. "I know that now," she said softly. We finished dinner in a more comfortable silence. As she got up to leave, she paused at my door, reaching into her pocket. "I wanted to give you something," she said, pulling out a small silver key. "It's for my apartment. The locksmith is making me new ones since you destroyed my door." She smiled wryly. "I figure, in case something happens again, or in case I'm being stupid and not taking care of myself, I'd feel better knowing someone could check on me." She held out the key, and I stared at it. It was just a key, a practical thing. But it felt like so much more than that. "Victoria," I said slowly, "are you sure? I mean, your husband, Marcus, doesn't have a key to this apartment," she said, and there was something sharp in her voice. "He hasn't been here in 6 months. He stays in hotels when he's in Seattle for work. Says it's easier than coming all the way out here." Jesus. What kind of marriage was this? "Please," she said, pressing the key into my palm. "I trust you, and honestly, you're the only person in this entire city I do trust." Her fingers lingered on mine for just a moment longer than necessary. Our eyes met, and I saw something there that made my heart race. Gratitude, yes, but something else too. Something neither of us were ready to name. "Okay," I said, closing my hand around the key. "But only for emergencies." "Only for emergencies," she agreed. But we both knew that line was already blurring. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria and I fell into an easy rhythm. I'd knock on her door in the mornings before work, just to check in. She'd bring me coffee on my days off. We'd watch movies on her couch. Her place was bigger and better decorated than mine, with takeout containers spread between us. It was innocent, mostly, but there were moments, small ones. Her hand brushing mine when she passed me a drink. The way she'd lean her head on my shoulder during movies, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The way we'd talk until 2 in the morning, sharing things I'd never told anyone. She told me about her marriage, how Marcus had been different when they first met. Attentive, present, interested in her dreams. How that had faded year by year until she'd woken up one day, married to a stranger who lived in hotels and saw her twice a month. "I don't think he's having an affair," she said one night, curled up on her couch with a glass of wine. "I almost wish he was. At least that would be something. This is just ... apathy, like I'm furniture he pays for but doesn't really see anymore." "You deserve better than that," I said, and meant it. She looked at me with those dark, intelligent eyes. "Do I? I don't know anymore." "You do," I insisted. "You deserve someone who sees you, Who wants to be here? Who doesn't make you feel like you're asking for too much by existing? Something shifted in her expression, a softening, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. Like you? She asked quietly. The question hung in the air between us, dangerous and electric. Victoria, I said, my voice rough. I'm not, I know, she interrupted. I know you're not trying to be anything. I know this is just ... friendship, neighborly concern. But Ryan, you see me, really see me. And I haven't felt that in so long. She was close now, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. Close enough that I could see the pulse beating in her throat. This is a bad idea, I said, but I didn't move away. No, she whispered, but I can't stop thinking about you. About how you showed up when I needed someone. About how you keep showing up. You're married, I said, like saying it out loud would make it matter more. Would create the boundary we both knew we should have. I know that too, she said, and there were tears in her eyes now. I know all the reasons this is wrong. But God, Ryan, I've been so lonely for so long, and you make me feel alive again. I should have left. I should have stood up, walked out, put distance between us before we crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But I didn't. Instead, I reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, my fingers lingering on her cheek. I don't want to be the reason your life gets complicated, I said. You already are, she replied. And I don't want you to stop. We sat there in the dim light of her apartment, rain drumming against the windows, both of us knowing we were standing on the edge of something we couldn't take back. Neither of us moved, not yet. But we both knew what was coming. Part 4, Crossing the Line. It happened on a Thursday night, 3 weeks after I'd broken down her door. I'd been trying to keep my distance. Really, I'd started taking different times to leave for work so I wouldn't run into her in the hallway. I'd stopped knocking on her door in the mornings. I'd even started making excuses when she'd text asking if I wanted to watch a movie. Because I knew. I knew what was building between us, and I knew it was wrong. She was married. Unhappily married, maybe. Lonely, definitely. But married all the same. And I'd never been that guy, the one who messed around with someone else's wife. But Victoria made it so damn hard to stay away. That Thursday, I came home from a brutal shift at the warehouse. My back was killing me. I was covered in dust and sweat, and all I wanted was a hot shower and to collapse into bed. There was a note taped to my door. Heard you come in? Made too much pasta? Come over? I stood there in the hallway, holding that note, knowing I should ignore it. Knowing I should go into my apartment, lock the door, and pretend I hadn't seen it. Instead, I found myself knocking on her door 5 minutes later, freshly showered, my hair still damp. Victoria answered, wearing jeans and an old college sweatshirt, her hair piled on top of her head, no makeup. She looked younger like this. More real, more beautiful. Hey, she said, smiling in a way that made my chest tight. You look tired. Long day, I said, following her inside. Her apartment smelled amazing: garlic, tomatoes, basil. That smells incredible. Family recipe, she said, leading me to her small dining table where 2 plates were already set. My grandmother taught me. It's one of the few things I can actually cook well. We ate, and it was easy. It was always easy with her. We talked about work, about a design project she was pitching, about nothing and everything. But there was an undercurrent now, a tension that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had always been there, and we'd just been better at ignoring it. After dinner, we ended up on her couch with wine. She'd put on some playlist soft indie music that filled the comfortable silence between conversations. Marcus called today, she said suddenly, staring into her glass. My stomach tightened. Yeah? How'd that go? He's extending his trip, she said flatly. Another 2 weeks in Singapore, then Hong Kong after that. Won't be home until Christmas. Maybe. Jesus, Victoria, he asked how I was feeling. I told him I'd been sick, that I ended up in the hospital. You know what he said? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's rough, babe. Glad you're doing better. Gotta run. Meeting in 5. She took a long drink of wine. 7 years of marriage, Ryan. 7 years, and that's what I get. That's rough, babe. I didn't know what to say. What was there to say? I reached out and put my hand over hers, meaning it as comfort. Nothing more. But she turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through mine. Do you know what the worst part is? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. I don't even miss him anymore. I used to miss him when he'd leave. Used to count the days until he'd be home, but now, I'm relieved when he's gone. The apartment feels more like mine. I feel more like myself. She looked up at me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. And then you showed up. You broke down my door and sat with me in the hospital and brought me fruit and made me laugh. And suddenly I remembered what it feels like to have someone actually care, actually want to be around me, actually see me as more than just furniture. Victoria, I said, my voice rough. I know this is wrong, she continued, the words spilling out like she'd been holding them back for too long. I know I'm married. I know you probably think I'm a terrible person for even saying this, but I can't stop thinking about you. About how different I feel when you're around. About how much I look forward to seeing you every day. She was crying now, quiet tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm so tired of being lonely, Ryan. I'm so tired of pretending my marriage is something it's not. I'm so tired of being the good wife who doesn't complain, who doesn't ask for more, who just accepts that this is her life now. I should have pulled my hand away. Should have told her we needed to stop this before it went any further. Should have been the reasonable one. But I was tired too. Tired of pretending I didn't feel what I felt. Tired of lying to myself about what was happening between us. I think about you too, I admitted quietly. More than I should. More than is smart. Her breath caught. Yeah? Yeah. I reached up and wiped a tear from her cheek with my thumb. You're amazing, Victoria. You're smart and funny and talented, and you deserve someone who sees that. Who appreciates it. Who wants to come home to you instead of staying in hotels? Someone like you? She whispered. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, but you're married, and that matters. That has to matter. What if it doesn't anymore? She asked. What if I don't want to be married to someone who doesn't want me? What if I want something real instead of this hollow version of a relationship? Then you need to figure that out, I said gently. But not like this. Not as an escape or a distraction or a way to avoid dealing with your marriage? She laughed shakily. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise, I said. I'm terrified. Because I want you, Victoria. I want to kiss you right now so badly it hurts. But I also don't want to be your mistake. I don't want to be the thing you regret when you're thinking clearly. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. You wouldn't be, she said softly. You could never be a mistake. And then she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, like she was giving me a chance to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. I'd been wanting this for weeks, fighting it, denying it, but now that it was happening, I couldn't stop. I kissed her back, my hand tangling in her hair, pulling her closer. She made a small sound in the back of her throat, and it undid something in me. The kiss deepened, became more urgent, more desperate. We were crossing the line. We both knew it. But neither of us stopped. Her hands were on my chest, sliding up to my shoulders. My hands were on her waist, pulling her onto my lap. She straddled me, and we were pressed together, breathing hard, kissing like we'd been starving for this. Ryan, she gasped against my mouth. I know, I said, kissing her jaw, her neck. I know. I don't want to stop, she whispered. I don't either. We made it to her bedroom, leaving a trail of clothes behind us. And for those few hours, there was no marriage, no guilt, no consequences. There was just us, her soft skin under my hands, her gasping my name, the way she held onto me like I was the only solid thing in her world. Afterward, we lay tangled together in her bed, the city lights filtering through her windows, casting shadows across her face. She traced patterns on my chest, her head resting on my shoulder. What have we done? She whispered. I don't know, I admitted, but I can't regret it. Even though I probably should. She lifted her head to look at me, her eyes serious. I don't regret it either. Is that terrible? Probably, I said, tucking her hair behind her ear. But I don't care. She kissed me again, soft and sweet this time. Stay with me tonight. Please, I don't want to be alone, so I stayed. And in the morning, when reality came crashing back in, we'd have to figure out what we'd done and where we could possibly go from here. But that night, wrapped up in each other, we pretended that this could somehow work. That this wasn't the beginning of destroying everything. Part 5. The affair that first night turned into a second. Then a third. Then a pattern we couldn't break. I tell myself each time that it was the last time. That we needed to stop before someone got hurt. But then Victoria would text me, or I'd hear her moving around next door, and all my resolve would crumble. We were having an affair. There was no other word for it. She was still married. Marcus was still in Singapore. then Hong Kong, then Dubai. He called once a week, perfunctory conversations that lasted 5 minutes. Victoria would put him on speaker sometimes while she cooked dinner, answering his questions with the same flat tone. How's work? Fine. How are you feeling? Better. Need anything? No, I'm good. And then he'd be gone again, back to his meetings and his hotel rooms, and his life that somehow didn't include his wife. Meanwhile, I was spending every free moment with her. We'd cook together in her kitchen, dancing around each other in that small space, stealing kisses between chopping vegetables. We'd fall asleep on her couch watching movies, waking up tangled together. We'd stay up until 3 in the morning talking about everything, her dreams of starting her own design firm, my vague plans for maybe going back to school, the places we wanted to travel. We built this bubble, this private world where it was just us, where the outside didn't exist. Where her marriage was just a technicality, a piece of paper, something that didn't really matter, but it did matter. And we both knew it, even if we didn't talk about it. I need to tell you something, Victoria said one night about 6 weeks into whatever we were doing. We were in her bed, post-sex, both of us still catching our breath. My stomach dropped. Okay, Marcus is coming home for Christmas, she said, her voice carefully neutral. Just for a week. He'll be here December 23rd through the 30th. I sat up, suddenly cold despite the warm sheets. Oh, yeah, she sat up too, pulling the sheets around her. I don't know how to do this, Ryan. I don't know how to have him here, in this apartment, when all I can think about is you. When this bed smells like you. When every room has memories of us. So tell him, I said, and the words surprised even me. Tell him about us. Ask for a divorce. She looked at me with something like fear in her eyes. It's not that simple, isn't it? I was getting dressed now, needing space, needing to move. You're unhappy. He's barely a husband. You clearly don't want to be married anymore. What's complicated about that? Everything, she said, her voice rising. The apartment is in his name. My health insurance is through his company. My visa status is tied to our marriage. I'm not a citizen yet. If I leave him, I lose everything. I'd have to move back to California, start over with nothing. I stopped, turning to face her. You'd have me. I've known you for 2 months, Ryan, she said, and the words felt like a slap. 2 months, you work at a warehouse. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I can't build my entire life around you. That's not fair to either of us. So what is this then? I asked, anger and hurt mixing together. What am I to you, a distraction? A way to feel less lonely while you wait for your absent husband to come home? No, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks now. No, that's not what this is. I care about you. I think I'm falling in love with you. But I can't just blow up my entire life on feelings. I need to be smart about this. Smart, I repeated bitterly. Right. How smart is it to keep sleeping with your neighbor while your husband is out of the country? That's not fair. None of this is fair. I was shouting now, and I didn't care. You're the one who's married, Victoria. You're the one who made those vows. But you keeping me in this weird limbo where I am good enough to fuck, but not good enough to actually leave him for. She flinched like I'd hit her. Don't do this. Don't make me choose right now. Why not? He's coming home in 3 weeks. What's the plan? Are you going to play happy wife while I listen to you two through the walls? Are you going to sleep with him after you've been with me? I don't know, she cried. I don't have all the answers, Ryan. I'm scared, okay? I'm terrified. This marriage is all I have keeping me stable in this country, in this city. If I leave him, I lose my safety net. You have me, I said again, but it sounded weaker this time. For how long? She asked quietly. We've known each other 2 months. You're 25, I'm 32. What if this is just infatuation? What if in 6 months you realize you don't want to be with someone who destroyed her marriage? What if you meet someone your own age who doesn't come with all this baggage? I wanted to tell her that wouldn't happen. That this was real, that I was sure. But the truth was I didn't know. She was right, we barely knew each other. This whole thing had happened so fast, so intensely, I hadn't stopped to think about the future beyond next week. I should go, I said finally. Ryan, please. I need to think, I said, heading for the door. We both do. Because this can't keep going like this. Something has to change. I left her apartment and went next door to mine, the walls between us feeling both too thick and too thin. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. I was in love with a married woman. A woman who couldn't or wouldn't leave her husband for me. A woman who was right that we barely knew each other, that this might be nothing more than proximity and loneliness creating the illusion of something real. But it felt real. When I was with her, it felt more real than anything else in my life. Around 3 in the morning, I heard her crying through the wall. Soft, muffled sobs that made my chest ache. I picked up my phone a dozen times wanting to text her, wanting to go over there. But I didn't, because she was right, something had to change. Either she needed to choose her marriage, actually commit to fixing it or ending it properly, or she needed to choose me, but she couldn't keep choosing both. And I couldn't keep being her secret. Part 6, The Husband Returns. Marcus arrived on December 23rd at 6 p.m. I heard him in the hallway, a deep voice. The sound of a suitcase rolling, Victoria's greeting that was more formal than warm. Their door closed, and I sat in my apartment, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Victoria and I hadn't talked much since our fight. A few text messages. One awkward conversation in the hallway where we both pretended everything was fine. But mostly we'd avoided each other. Now her husband was here. In the apartment next door, sleeping in the bed where I couldn't think about it. I'd planned to spend Christmas with some guys from work, maybe go to a bar, try to distract myself. But on Christmas Eve, there was a knock on my door. Marcus Chun stood in the hallway. He was exactly what I'd imagined, tall, well-dressed in expensive casual clothes. Professionally groomed, the kind of guy who looked like he belonged in first class. He had an easy confidence that came from money and success. "Ryan, right?" he said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus, Victoria's husband. She's told me a lot about you." I shook his hand, my mouth dry. "Nice to meet you. Listen, we're having some people over for Christmas dinner tomorrow, just a few colleagues of mine who are in town. Victoria insisted I invite you. Thank you properly for helping her when she was sick. The idea of sitting at a table with them, watching them play at being a couple, made me want to throw up." "Thanks, but I've got plans," I lied. "Come on, man," Marcus said, all practiced charm. "It would mean a lot to Victoria, and honestly, I feel like I owe you. I wasn't here when she needed someone, and you stepped up. Let me at least feed you, yeah?" There was no way to refuse without being rude. "Sure, what time?" 6 tomorrow. "Bring wine if you want, but don't feel obligated." He clapped me on the shoulder like we were old friends. "Great to finally meet you, man." He went back to his apartment, and I closed my door, my hands shaking. Christmas dinner was torture. There were 6 of us, me, Victoria, Marcus, and 3 of his colleagues with their partners. The apartment looked beautiful. Victoria had outdone herself with the decorations, the table setting, the food. She looked beautiful too in a dark green dress, her hair down, makeup perfect. She looked like Marcus's wife, polished, elegant, the perfect accessory to his successful life. She barely looked at me all night. I sat at the end of the table, making small talk with a marketing executive named Diane, while Marcus held court. He was charming, funny, telling stories about Singapore and Hong Kong, making everyone laugh. And Victoria played her part perfectly. She smiled at his jokes. She touched his arm when she served him food. She looked at him with something that, to everyone else, probably looked like affection. But I could see the truth. The smile that didn't reach her eyes. The way she flinched slightly when he touched her. The careful distance she maintained even while playing at closeness. "So, Ryan," Marcus said during dessert, his arm around Victoria's shoulders, "Victoria tells me you were a real hero. Breaking down doors, riding in ambulances. Very dramatic." Everyone laughed. I forced a smile. "Just did what anyone would do," I said. "Not anyone," Victoria said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken directly to me all night. Most people would have just called 911 and gone back to bed. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw everything she wasn't saying. The apology, the longing, the misery. "Well, I'm grateful," Marcus said, squeezing her shoulder. "Can't have my girl dying while I'm off making money, right?" He laughed at his own joke. No one else seemed to notice how awful that was. How it reduced her near-death experience to an inconvenience in his schedule. But I noticed. And so did Victoria, based on the way her jaw tightened. The dinner finally ended around 11. As everyone was leaving, Victoria walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice formal, her body language rigid. "Yeah, no problem," I said, matching her tone. She walked me into the hallway out of earshot of the others. "I'm sorry," she whispered quickly. I'm so sorry. This is killing me. Don't, I said, my voice harder than I meant. Just don't. I miss you, she said, tears threatening. You made your choice, I replied. He's your husband. I'm just the neighbor. I went back to my apartment and spent the rest of Christmas night listening to them through the wall. Their voices low and indistinct. The sound of them cleaning up together. Eventually, silence. I told myself I was done. That this was the wake-up call I needed. She was married. She was staying married. I needed to move on. But then, on December 27th, she texted me. Can we talk? Marcus is at meetings all day. I should have said no. Should have protected myself. But I'd never been good at protecting myself when it came to her. Your place. 10 minutes. She opened the door before I even knocked, and then we were kissing, desperate and frantic, all the restraint of the past 4 days breaking at once. I can't do this, she gasped between kisses. I can't pretend anymore. Ryan, I can't. Then don't, I said, backing her toward the bedroom. Don't pretend. We made love in the bed she shared with her husband, and I hated myself for it even as I couldn't stop. Afterward, we lay tangled together, both of us breathing hard, both knowing this was insane. He leaves tomorrow, she said quietly. Back to Singapore for another month. Victoria, I'm going to tell him, she said, cutting me off. When he gets back in February, I'm going to ask for a divorce. I sat up, looking at her. You mean that? I mean it, she said, her eyes serious. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being married to someone I don't love while being in love with someone else. It's not fair to anyone, not to him, not to you, and not to me. What about your visa? Your insurance? All that practical stuff? I'll figure it out, she said. I'll talk to a lawyer. See what my options are. Maybe I can get a work visa through my design business. Maybe I'll have to go back to California for a while. But I can't keep living like this. She took my hand, lacing our fingers together. I'm choosing you, Ryan. I'm choosing us. It's terrifying and stupid and probably the biggest risk I've ever taken, but I'm doing it. Because you make me feel alive. Because you see me. Because when I'm with you, I remember who I am beyond just being someone's wife. I pulled her close, holding her tight. I'm scared too. But I want this. I want you. I want a real chance, not stolen hours and secrets. Me too, she whispered. Me too. We spent that last day before Marcus left wrapped up in each other, pretending the deadline didn't exist, but eventually I had to go home. Had to let her play wife one more time. Marcus left the next morning. I heard their goodbye in the hallway cordial, distant, like roommates parting ways. And then he was gone, and it was just us again. Victoria came to my apartment that night with Thai takeout and a serious expression. I called a lawyer today, she said. First consultation is next week. She specializes in divorce cases involving immigration issues. How do you feel? I asked. Terrified, she admitted. But also free. Like, I'm finally doing something instead of just existing in this weird limbo. I'm proud of you, I said, and I meant it. We ate dinner, and then she stayed the night. And the night after that, and the one after that. Slowly, carefully, we started building something real. Not an affair, not a secret, but an actual relationship. But in the back of my mind I knew this wasn't over. Marcus would come home eventually. And when he did, Victoria would have to tell him. And then everything would explode. Part 7. The confrontation February came faster than I wanted it to. Marcus's return date loomed over us like a storm cloud. Victoria was nervous. I could see it in the way she'd check her phone constantly. The way she'd go quiet sometimes, staring out windows with a worried expression. She'd met with the lawyer 3 times. The news wasn't great. Divorce would be messy, financially complicated, and potentially threatening to her visa status. But she was determined. She'd started documenting everything: Marcus's absence, his lack of support, the state of their marriage. I'm doing this, she kept saying, like she was trying to convince herself. I'm really doing this, I believed her. Or at least I wanted to. Marcus was due back on February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I'm going to tell him that night, Victoria said. After he settles in, I'll ask him to sit down and just ... Tell him I want a divorce. Do you want me there? I asked. No, she said quickly. No, I need to do this alone. It's my marriage, my mess. I have to be the one to end it. So on February 14th, I waited in my apartment while Marcus came home. I heard him arrive around 7. Heard their voices through the wall, his jovial, hers tense. I couldn't make out words, but I could hear the tone. Around 8, the voices got louder, raised, angry. I pressed my ear to the wall, my heart pounding. Marcus was shouting. Victoria's voice was lower, but firm. I heard my name, Ryan, and my stomach dropped. She was telling him. It was happening. The shouting got louder, something crashed, glass breaking. I was on my feet, ready to intervene if I needed to. Fucking neighbor? Marcus's voice came through clearly. Are you kidding me? The warehouse worker? That's who you're leaving me for? This isn't about him, Victoria's voice strained. This is about us, about you never being here. About you treating me like furniture. Oh, spare me the victim routine, Marcus snarled. I work my ass off to give you a comfortable life, and this is how you repay me? By fucking the guy next door? Don't you dare, Victoria started, but he cut her off. How long? Marcus demanded. How long have you been screwing him? There was a pause. Then, quietly, 2 months. 2 months, Marcus repeated, and I could hear the venom in his voice. 2 months you've been making a fool of me. Was he in my bed? Did you fuck him in my bed? It's not your bed, Victoria said, her voice shaking. You're never here. This hasn't been your home in years. Because I'm working, Marcus roared. Because someone has to pay for all this. I never asked for this. Victoria shouted back. I asked for a husband. I asked for someone who wanted to be with me. But you were never here, Marcus. Even when you were here, you weren't here. So yes, I found someone who saw me. Someone who actually wanted to spend time with me. So this is my fault? Marcus said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You cheat on me, and it's my fault? I'm not saying it's right, Victoria said, and I could hear her crying now. I know what I did was wrong. But this marriage has been over for years, Marcus. We both know it. We're just too scared to admit it. I'm not scared, Marcus said coldly. And you're right about one thing, this marriage is over. I want you out of this apartment by the end of the month. I'm talking to my lawyer tomorrow. And trust me, Victoria, you're not getting a dime from me. You want to blow up our marriage for some minimum wage loser? Fine, but you do it with nothing. I don't want your money, Victoria said. I just want to be free. You'll be free, Marcus said. And alone. Because that boy next door? He'll get tired of you. He'll realize you're just a desperate older woman who latched onto him because you were lonely. And then you'll have nothing. No husband, no home, no visa. Good luck with that. I heard footsteps, then a door slamming, then silence. I waited 5 minutes, then went to her door. She opened it before I could knock, her face blotchy with tears, mascara running down her cheeks. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. He knows, she gasped. He knows everything. I held her while she cried, leading her back into the apartment. The living room was a mess of broken wine glass on the floor, a chair knocked over, signs of the confrontation. Tell me what happened, I said gently. She told me everything. How she'd tried to be calm and reasonable. How Marcus had immediately accused her of cheating. How she'd admitted it because she couldn't lie anymore. How he turned vicious, saying things designed to hurt her, to make her feel small. He said you'd get tired of me, she said, her voice small. That I'm just a desperate older woman. That I destroyed everything for nothing. He's wrong, I said firmly. He's hurt and angry and he's lashing out. Don't listen to him. What if he's right, though? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What if this doesn't work? What if I gave up everything, my marriage, my stability, my home, for something that was just temporary? Look at me, I said, taking her face in my hands. I love you. This isn't temporary for me. This isn't some fling. You're it, Victoria. You're who I want. You love me? She whispered. Yes, I said, realizing I never actually said it before. I love you. I have for weeks. Maybe longer. She kissed me then, desperate and salt-tasting from tears. I love you too, she said against my mouth. I love you so much. We held each other while the reality of what she'd done sank in. She'd actually left him. She'd actually chosen me. Now we just had to figure out what came next. Part 8. The aftermath. The next few weeks were chaos. Marcus moved out of the apartment within 3 days, taking most of the furniture with him. He'd bought it all, he said. He was entitled to it. Victoria didn't fight him. She was too exhausted. She moved into my apartment temporarily. Her one bedroom was too empty, too full of ghosts. We figured we'd look for a place together once the dust settled. Marcus's lawyer contacted her lawyer. They were pushing for a quick divorce. He wanted her out of his life as fast as possible. Fine by her. But there were complications, the apartment lease, the visa issue, the dividing of assets, not that there were many. Marcus had made sure his money stayed his money. Victoria's lawyer explained that her visa situation was precarious. She could apply for her own work visa, but it would take time and there were no guarantees. She might have to leave the country while it was processed. The reality of what she'd sacrificed started to sink in. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, panicking about money, about her immigration status, about whether she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. And I'd hold her and tell her it would be okay, even though I wasn't sure it would be. What if I have to go back to California? She asked one night. What if I can't get the visa? We'd be on opposite sides of the country. Then we'd figure it out, I said. Long distance for a while, I could visit. We could video chat. That's not a relationship, she said. That's not what I left Marcus for. What do you want me to say? I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. That I have all the answers? I don't. I'm 25 years old, Victoria. I work at a warehouse. I can't magically fix your visa problems or make Marcus less of an asshole. All I can do is be here and love you and try to help however I can. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm sorry. I'm not blaming you. I'm just scared. I know, I said, softer now. I'm scared too, because the truth was I didn't know if this would work. I didn't know if love was enough when there were so many practical obstacles in the way, but I wanted it to be. In March, Victoria got good news. Her design business qualified her for an O1 visa for individuals with extraordinary ability in the arts. It would take a few months to process, but her lawyer was optimistic. She also landed her biggest client yet, a hotel chain that wanted her to redesign their Seattle locations. The money was good, really good, enough that she could afford her own place. I think I'm going to get the apartment next door, she said one evening. The lease is up. The landlord says he'd rent it to me. Are you sure? I asked. I thought maybe we'd look for a place together. She took my hand. I love you, Ryan, but I need to do this on my own. I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet without depending on a man, whether that's as Marcus or you. Does that make sense? It did. It hurt a little, but it did. I'll still be right next door, she said, smiling. You'll probably get sick of me. Never, I promised. By April, Victoria's divorce was final. Marcus had signed the papers without contest. He just wanted it done. No alimony. No assets divided. A clean break. She cried when it was official, not sad tears exactly. More like relief, release. The end of 7 years that had slowly suffocated her. I'm free, she said, looking at the final decree. I'm actually free. We celebrated with cheap champagne in my apartment, sitting on my ratty couch, eating takeout Chinese food. So what now? I asked. Now, she said, we get to actually date. Like normal people. No secrets. No guilt. Just us. I'd like that, I said. She kissed me, soft and sweet. Me too. Epilogue. 1 year later, it's been a year since I broke down Victoria's door. A year since everything changed. We re-standing in her apartment, the same one next to mine that she ended up leasing, surrounded by moving boxes. She got offered a major contract in San Francisco. A dream project designing a tech campus for a major company. It's too good to pass up. She's moving back to California next week. Come with me, she says. It's not the first time she's asked. Victoria ... double quotes. I know, she says quickly. I know it's a lot. You have your job here, your life. But Ryan, I want you there. I want us to build something together in San Francisco. A real life. Not just apartments next door to each other. I've been thinking about this for weeks. The warehouse job isn't a career, it's just a paycheck. Seattle was supposed to be my fresh start, but maybe San Francisco could be a better one. With her, I'd need to find work, I say. You'll find work, she says confidently. You're smart and capable and you'll figure it out. I've never lived with anyone before, I admit. Not like this. As an actual couple. Neither have I, she says. Not really. Marcus and I were never really together even when we were living together, but with you, I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want to build a life with you. I look around her apartment, at the place where we fell in love, where she found the courage to leave a dead marriage, where we learned how to be together despite everything working against us. Okay, I say. Okay? Her eyes light up. Okay, I'll come with you, I say, pulling her close. To San Francisco. To whatever comes next. She kisses me, laughing and crying at the same time. Really? Really, I promise. You saved me just as much as I saved you that night. I'm not letting you go now. We stand there in the empty apartment, holding each other, thinking about the future. It won't be perfect. We'll have struggles. We'll fight sometimes. Ella, have to figure out how to really be a couple without the intensity of an affair fueling us. But we'll figure it out together. Because that's what you do when you love someone. When you've destroyed everything to be with them. When you've chosen them over safety and security and the easier path, you build something new, something real, something worth breaking down doors for. End of story. This is Orion's Revelations exclusive true story about forbidden's love, infidelity, and the devastating consequences of betraying a marriage. Subscribe for more true stories about relationships gone wrong, cheating scandals, and love triangles that destroyed everything.